Whenever you hear about the economy on the news, it usually comes down to this one big abstract number. But what if we could actually peel back the layers of that number and see the real people and the real work it represents? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. We'll use the Indian economy as our guide to really get what's going on under the hood.
So, here's our game plan. We'll start with the basics. What even is an economy? Then, we'll dive into the three main engines that power it and see how they're all connected. From there, things get really interesting. We'll look at where people actually work, uncover two very different worlds of employment, and wrap up with the single biggest challenge that all of this reveals.
All right, first things first. What exactly are we talking about when we say the economy? How do we take this massive, complicated idea and boil it down into something we can actually get our heads around?
When you think economy, you probably picture money, right? Coins, cash, stock tickers. But here's the thing. Money is just how we keep score. It's the measurement, not the game itself. So what's the game we're actually scoring?
Well, the answer is economic activities. It sounds a bit formal, but the idea is simple. It's any action that people do to earn money by creating something of value. Whether it's a farmer planting a seed or a programmer writing a line of code, if it produces, distributes, or consumes something for cash, it's part of the economy.
And that brings us to the main scorecard, GDP, or Gross Domestic Product. This is the big number. It's the total cash value of all the finished goods and services a country makes in 1 year. And that word, final, is super important. Think about it. We count the value of the finished car, not the tires, the steel, and the glass separately. If we did, we'd be counting the same value over and over again.
Okay, so we have this big GDP score. But where does that number actually come from? Well, it's not from just one place. It's powered by three distinct, but totally interconnected, economic engines. Let's break them down.
First up, we've got the primary sector. This is the foundation, the very beginning of the economic chain. It's all about activities that pull resources directly from Mother Earth. You can basically think of it as the getting stuff sector.
So we're talking about farming, obviously, but also fishing, chopping down trees for lumber and mining for minerals. It's the source of all the raw materials that fuel everything else.
Next up is the secondary sector, which you might also know as the industrial sector. It's the primary sector is about getting stuff. This one is all about making stuff. It takes those raw materials and manufactures them into something new.
This is the world of factories and manufacturing. It's the mill that turns sugarcane into sugar, the plant that smelts iron ore into steel beams, or the factory that turns raw cotton into a t-shirt.
And finally, we have the tertiary sector. Now, this one's a little different. It doesn't actually produce physical goods. This is the doing stuff engine. It provides all the essential services that help the other two sectors and pretty much our entire society function.
And wow, the service sector is huge. It covers everything from the truck driver who moves the goods and the banker who finances the factory, to the doctor who keeps us healthy, the teacher in a classroom, and the software developer building an app.
Now, it's really tempting to think of these as three separate boxes, right? The farmer's over here, the factory's there, and the service is somewhere else. But that's not how it works at all. In reality, they are completely tangled up, forming a kind of economic ecosystem where each one depends on the others. Let's just follow a simple piece of clothing to see what I mean. Step 1. A farmer grows cotton. That's the primary sector. Step 2. A mill takes that cotton and weaves it into cloth. That's secondary. Then a truck transports that cloth, and a shopkeeper sells it to you. Both of those are tertiary services. See? You need all three working in harmony to get that final product into your hands.
Okay, so now we get what gets made and how all the parts connect. But let's shift gears and talk about who is doing all this work. Because when we look at where people are actually employed, a really surprising, kind of strange picture starts to emerge.
First, let's look at where the money comes from, the contribution to GDP. And this probably won't shock you. In a modernizing economy, the service sector generates the most value by far. And the primary sector, agriculture and all that, contributes the least to the final score.
But, and this is a huge but, when you look at where people actually work, the whole picture flips on its head. The primary sector, the one that contributes the least to the country's wealth, is by far the biggest employer. So how on earth can the part of the economy that creates the least value employ the most people? What is going on here?
Well, the answer lies in a concept called disguised unemployment. It sounds complicated, but the idea is pretty simple. It's when you have way more people doing a job than you actually need.
For example, imagine a small family farm where 5 people are doing work that could easily be done by just 2. Everyone feels employed, everyone is busy, but each person's actual productivity is incredibly low.
And that brings us to another huge piece of this puzzle. You see, it's not just about what sector you work in, but also how you work. In India, there are basically 2 parallel universes of employment, the organized sector and the unorganized sector.
And the difference between them is like night and day. On one hand, you have the organized sector. This is the world of formal jobs, governed by laws. You get an appointment letter, you have fixed hours, you get a regular salary. Then there's the unorganized sector, which is, well, the opposite. It operates outside most regulations. There are no formal contracts, no fixed hours, and definitely no guarantee of income.
Think about what that means for your life. In the organized sector, you've got a safety net. Job security, paid holidays, sick leave, health benefits, a retirement fund. But in the unorganized sector, there's nothing. If you don't work, you don't get paid. If you get sick, too bad. And when you're too old to work, there's no safety net to catch you.
And here is the number that should really make you stop and think. An incredible 92% of the entire workforce in India is employed in this unprotected, unorganized sector. Let that sink in for a second. That is the reality for the overwhelming majority of working people.
So let's put all these pieces together, right? We have an economy where most of the wealth, the GDP, is being generated in the service sector. But at the same time, most of the people, the actual human beings, are working in the primary sector, often with very low productivity. And on top of all that, more than 9 out of 10 workers across the entire country have no formal job security or benefits.
This right here reveals the single biggest challenge. It's the central question of it all. If all the money is being made in one corner of the economy, but most of the people are working in another with almost no protection, how do you build a country where growth actually helps everyone? How do you make sure that big number on the news, the GDP, translates into a better, more secure life for the people on the ground? That is the real puzzle.